Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the penthouse of the spiritual bungalow. And Nomen, I noticed that you've added a suffix to your name this time. Would you like to explain?
Nomenclator is the name of the slave in ancient times who would keep track of all the other slaves for the master. It was also just generally used to name a receptionist.
A receptionist.
And a receptionist, secretary, that sort of thing. You with the words.
With a face.
Get with the writing.
It's interesting. So what's the derivative of like the suffix clator then?
That's a very good question. One which I
Are you gonna look it up right now?
Deep in the recesses of my mind.
Of your knowledge. I should have asked you that in advance so you'd look much more intelligent.
Then you didn't, because you're a bad person.
But what is like so what's the modern notion of nomenclature? Like, you hear that a lot about that it has something to do with names and their derivations.
Yeah, so it's from kalo, call together.
Oh.
Plus the Tor, which is the one who does the thing. So calling together the names, that sort of thing.
So someone who takes a census.
Yeah. Right.
Happy feast day, by the way. Speaking of nomenclature.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Good name. Good saint.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah. The same one comes from the Latin. It's this is a term, nomenclatura, a calling by name, right? Because that's sort of the concept of the name list, basically doing roll call.
Well, let's give a cheers to all the Josephs in the audience or potential future audience. Cheers to you. So you're drinking your classic martini there, Nomen?
Sort of. I ran out of olives.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great tragedy, but...
More the prohibition drink.
I'll survive. I'll survive with my mash style martini.
So I thought I'd get something fancy for the feast, so I bought the White Wedding White Pastry Stout. But I thought it was just going to be a regular stout. I didn't realize it was going to be like white beer.
So are you saying that it's a nice day for a white wedding?
It's a nice day
It's a nice day to drink a stout.
Wow, it's a nice day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
a Billy Idol special.
Well, I mean,
then I'll be making my way onto the Pink Elephants after that, since it is a feast. Go to my delirium tremens. I don't think I'll be quite in the shakes though, but that would be kind of interesting though if like you had like the if you went through like the Dumbo psychedelic trip after having one of those. I don't think I would do it very often.
Well, they did it with Dumbo, the pink elephants on parade, but then they did it again in the Winnie the Pooh series with the heffalumps. Like, kind of like elephants, but weren't they like different colors? Like when they did the television adaptation of the Winnie the Pooh stuff.
Yeah.
Didn't he have like these fever dreams?
Yeah, but what caused them though? Because like in Dumbo, it actually was alcohol because he fell into like the barrel, the whiskey barrel. But I don't think that was that explicit in Winnie the Pooh.
I mean, it's always kind of implied. Gotta get to the cupboard,
And the Pooh's just
bears. Interestingly enough, bears are the. If I if I recall correctly, bears are the only other animal that will deliberately get inebriated on multiple occasions.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I remember when
They share this with humans.
I remember I watched my friend's dog get drunk on Bailey's this one time. But I think it was just because he liked the Bailey's. But it was a real weird sight. He was like dragging his head on the ground and stuff. And yeah, I don't think it's good for a dog. That my friend found that out later. But luckily, he didn't drink very much of it.
But it's not just it's not just inebriated too. So bears. I think there are other animals kind of in the African savannah that will eat fermented fruit. And
like
pigs.
Good time out of it. Pigs get like really drunk.
Bears go in for psychedelic mushrooms.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they look for them. And they just like lay there. They go on the Joe Rogan experience.
On the Joe Rogan experience, yeah, that would be
talk about how it changed their life.
Yeah, I don't see how it changes anyone's lives. Like my cousin told me this when he took it and he went into the forest and ran away from all his friends, and then he thought he was being chased by the Dementors in Harry Potter.
Oh, that's no. That sounds like an unenjoyable experience. I mean, that would change your life. You'd be like, maybe I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Yeah, another of my friends no, he didn't. That was with salvia, and salvia was like legal, at least in Canada, which is like really weird.
Was that weird gas station?
Yeah, the gas station
where people would have these minor trips. I mean,
yeah, but it only lasts for like a little bit. But people would do it, and they sold it to like 14-year-olds, which is the most retarded thing I can imagine.
Like, yeah, but they'll sell you nutmeg. You can get high off your boots on nutmeg.
You have to
Don't do it, kids. Nutmeg. It's not good. There's a 3-day hangover apparently.
But so
also don't do it.
Yeah, but like he had like so he took it and he just like was really weirding out, and then he was getting tunnel vision, and his friends were like laughing at him. Was watching his friends laughing at him while he was like tripping out.
So it was like the end of Master of Puppets.
Well, yeah, exactly. It was like that, except it was even worse because there was like he was just using tunnel vision, and he had these two tunnels in his eyes, and it just like encapsulated his friends' heads. Who were, like,
that is exactly how Master of Puppets is. Exactly.
Oh, really? That happens in the is there a music video for Master
of Puppets? No, I have no idea, but it's just that seems like the perfect visual representation of the end of that
that song.
That song, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about we could look at some news items here, Nomen. How do you feel about that?
Sure.
Okay, so this one's interesting that I saw. So Russia is offering a hero's medal and $16,000, that's 1 million rubles, to women who have 10 kids. So it's called, they received this title called the Mother Heroine, which was apparently a title that was established under Stalin.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Soviet area.
Yeah, as the parallels are going real good here.
Yeah, but it's there's some weird stipulations. So like one of them is that there has to be an appropriate.
Two of them have to be from Vladimir Putin.
They have to be alive unless they died in combat, and there has to be an appropriate level of care for health, education, physical, spiritual, and moral development. So I wonder how that metric would be applied.
Yeah, I think it would just be arbitrarily. Putin would be like, okay.
So, but would they accept like spiritual development if like they were like like on the Timothy Leary sort of like hype train, or if they like I mean I imagine they want someone who's like like obviously part of the national church, since
I would imagine that it would be like very
specific.
What
if they're Ukrainian Orthodox? Do you think they would accept that as spiritual? Or Ukrainian Catholic? Yeah.
Putin say no. Unacceptable.
Unacceptable. Yeah, it's actually they could have died during civic service or in a terrorist attack as well. But yeah, it was developed in 1944 and was bestowed until the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Mother Heroine.
Well, when you're running out of people, one starts to think of ways to get more of them.
Yeah. So next news item that I found interesting here was so the University of Helsinki is issuing some honorary doctorates, and so I was just scrolling through the names here, the many Scandinavian names, and found an interesting one here.
What's the doctorate in?
It is faculty of theology. Yeah, of course.
I mean, she's pretty much nailed. Like she's
nailed.
She
met with the Pope, man. Like
she's nailed Lutheran theology. So I don't see why she shouldn't
You're
get
not
it.
opposed to that? What do you think
No,
about? Do you think that she worked as hard at it as your wife did?
I mean, here's the thing. So
I wanted to be offended to use and use the "how dare you" line. That's what I was leading this up to.
Okay. How dare you? No, that you've stolen my childhood.
My childhood.
No, but you see this. So what this puts in my mind is when St. Thomas is talking about justice, it is an act of injustice to withhold payment from a prostitute. And so it would be an act of injustice. She put in all that work,
right.
shilling on the public stage. Basically, the public service equivalent.
It might not be the best
of that
comparison.
With your spirit,
no, to compare like that. She's not 12 anymore, but yeah.
I mean,
to that illusion, I suppose. Yeah.
But in justice, she deserves a doctorate in theology from a Lutheran institution in a country that's gone apostate because she has upheld their theology publicly. So. I mean, she's basically the Dr. Samuel Johnson of Sweden in the 21st century. He wrote the first English dictionary. She got up on a stage and cried about things.
Yep. She met the Pope. It was a very ecumenical moment.
She just did she just talked about some stuff.
I mean, but it is sad.
The question here.
I mean, she's obviously, kind of like just being used by her parents.
The question here isn't whether or not the climate debates or whatever. That's not the question. The question, of course, is whether or not being an activist is worth anything at all, and it isn't.
No. What does an honorary doctorate get you, anyways?
An honorary doctorate is when the university says, "Hey, you're cool. Will you be my friend?" And
like Obama,
and then you kind of like, yeah, sure, sure. That'll look good on my
you can
trophy
get a nice
case.
I got a little cloak and a hat, and
I want a cloak and a hat.
Yeah. I will just wear my regalia all the time, though.
It's not like you put it on. It's not like you put it on your resume, like Greta who? Oh, you have a doctorate in theology from the University of Helsinki. Okay,
Helsinki. Whatever. Are you I thought you were saying like Saul Alinsky.
Saul Alinsky. Yeah, she does have a doctorate from Saul Alinsky. Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
No, I wasn't calling her.
No, I know you weren't. Yeah, it's
but fine. I was merely alluding to the fact that, one sells one's talents, and one's talent might be getting up on a stage and crying.
All of Christendom was in moral outrage.
Read your comment. I had to use that.
I mean, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll come back.
It'll come back.
We'll come back.
And we'll come back. So, title topic for today. Do you have your toothbrush? Oh, I see you've chosen the rinsing method.
Before I leave, I'm a brush with a bottle of Jack. When I leave tonight, I ain't coming back.
That's right.
Yes.
So, but yes, the Catholic art of toothbrushing is of an imperative issue of our times.
Well, virtue is important, and it's important that you have a virtue schedule.
It's important that you have a brushing schedule as well.
Yeah, and there's no point in having a brushing schedule if you don't talk about it all the time.
It's true, and
remind people who don't have one that they're inferior.
So I prefer the charcoal bristles, but I mean you can use white bristles if you want. I mean, more power to you. I mean, it might show your tendencies and other things a little bit, your color preferences, but just each to his own. But one thing that I learned about brushing your teeth is that you shouldn't actually go back and forth like this on the sides. You should just flick down. It's just like a nice little flick. Just get right in the gum lines and just pull it down. Just and
I never want to see you do that again. Never.
You never want to see me brushing my teeth?
That was too much. That was just the gums. Oh. I'm so glad I didn't become a dental hygienist. Well, I mean, yeah. The money would be nice, but apparently oral hygiene professions have high suicide rates. So
Oh really?
Yeah, it might be from poor life choices because there's too much money, or it might be that looking in people's mouths all day makes you want to kill yourself. I don't know. It's a tragedy, obviously. Although suicide is the national pastime in Canada now, so they were ahead of the curve, I guess.
Oh, I'm brushing my teeth on the bottom, 'cause I wouldn't want to say that I forgot them. But while I'm brushing my teeth and having so much fun, I never let the water run. No, I never let the water run.
In the list of things that you can do as a parent, the kind of contracts that you can sign and such. Certainly less egregious than what was done with our good friend, the theologian. But
what are you talking about right now?
I'm talking about putting your children on Barney.
I thought you were trying to
exploit them for money. There's no way those kids got the money. They did that, and then 10 years later, you go to look at that, and the parents were like, "Yeah, well, we lit cigars with $100 bills and went to Cabo, and
I thought you were driving a comparison
got left with your uncle for a week." And
I thought you were driving a comparison between Barney and social contract theory.
No, but that is interesting. There is an element to that show that is social contract theory,
right.
I love you, you love me, therefore we're a happy family. I mean, is it therefore that we're a family? Ooh. Is he saying that mutual affection is what constitutes the family?
What constitutes the family.
Sort of a contract, a reciprocal contract.
Well, I mean, back to the the
clean up, everybody, everywhere, everybody do your share, right?
I mean, the USSR actually under Alexander Kollontai actually tried to dissolve the family unit as a whole and just have kind of these birthing mothers who would do the duty of the unsavory duty of burying the children, and they'd have kind of a home, Soviet home, where they'd be raised. But it was a little bit too radical even for Lenin. He just was not a big fan of that.
Well, and the ultimate irony is that Barney looks like Gorbachev.
Well, he looks like Gorbachev's spot. Like he's just like it looks like.
No, he's got
Gorbachev's
those dots on his head.
Oh, does he?
He's got those dots on his head. Yeah. No, he looks like Gorbachev. Look at the face. Pull that up. Pull
it up. Okay,
pull
well,
up Barney. Pull up
get a
Barney.
clip.
Let's see
I got
Barney.
a clip with Barney here, right here. I don't know. Like I don't see spots, man. Okay, here I'll pull this up again. Let's see here. Make that full screen. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm telling you, Nelson Mandela died in the 90s.
The eyes.
There are spots.
He's got the droopy eyes for sure. Like that's definitely yeah. I want to see this. Like Barney, Gorbachev. See if there's a Gorbachev. If there's a comparison.
There has to be. There has to be. I'm not the only madman on the internet.
Barney the dinosaur. This might be your like personal theory. Like I don't know if everyone. That's terrifying. Teenager gets stuck in Barney the dinosaur head. Look at just like the. Oh wait, we were looking the wrong screen here. All right. Yeah, this is terrifying. Like this is like one of the first things that came.
That is pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
He looks really high in that one picture on the left.
Here?
Speaking of no, the one just to the right of that.
Oh, here. Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Hey.
Okay, there's no spots there. Who has spots then? There's a dinosaur with spots.
This dinosaur kind of has spots. Oh, this is gross. Freaking jacked Barney.
I really want you to. We're not looking at this anymore because the internet.
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
Like, it's a bad idea. Just cut it. Smoke bomb your way out of that.
Yeah. So brushing your teeth, as Barney taught us, you have to get the bottom and make sure you're thorough and make sure it has to be at least 3 minutes. That's how a real Catholic gentleman brushes. And if you don't, then you are a reprobate and you will suffer for all eternity.
Well, you have to have a rule of life.
It's a moral imperative, James.
It is, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, what else is there to say except get your bristles out and brush them. But it's kind of I mean we've kind of killed the shtick, but I mean it is kind of like that is kind of the level.
He's already dead.
That is kind of like the level of our Catholic discourse a lot of the time is just like this like sort of moralizing in this very sort of unattractive sort of way. But I mean, I guess like what I wanted to talk about in that capacity is like, I mean, it seems like we should to some like extent, like talk about like the moral life and about like pursuing holiness. But how do you do it in a way that doesn't seem just like vainglorious or just gross? Yeah, I don't know, like because I've never seen it really done well. I mean, I guess maybe it's just like maybe we're just missing clerics who are the ones who should be doing it. Maybe it's that simple, but I don't know. I mean, it is very like, yeah. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, I think the virtue discourse just gets kind of, it's quite easy to talk about. What on earth is going on?
My delirium tremens exploded on me.
It's one way to completely derail a stream.
A stream about
derailed the stream about virtue by having beer just pour everywhere.
Hey, don't judge me, man. It's first class feast.
No, I mean, it's easy to talk kind of ad nauseum about it.
Well, I mean, like there's good examples. But... Like, I mean, like I was today when we were working, I was listening to Father Gregory Pine's book about prudence, and it was good. Like, I had good insights about St. Thomas's understanding of prudence and about kind of the different parts of prudence. So the intellective parts and the parts of judgment and will, but it's but I mean, I think a lot of times too, when people talk about it, it does become sort of like how do I say this in a non-crude way, about just sort of like, like putting it out there and just saying it's like, oh yeah, you gotta do your virtue flex or whatever.
Oh yeah. Well, that I mean, I think it is a problem because it's the example, we're exaggerating, brushing your teeth, but there are simple things that you can do, and then once you do them for, I don't know, like a week, you're like, yes, virtue master.
Yeah.
Like that obnoxious bit. That obnoxious bit with Mark Wahlberg where he was like, yeah, I post my day schedule to the internet. Don't do that. That's gross. Stop it. But again, people who whore themselves out on stages. I'm not saying physically do that, but when you get out there to like do.
Mm-hmm.
Also, tell me more about how your Catholic faith influences your acting when you were doing TED 2.
Yeah.
Like, what a vile piece of trash.
Did you watch
it? Not just Entourage, but like TED 2 was like in the middle of him being like, yes, young men should go and be priests. Now,
really? That was like right in the middle.
Like, I'm pretty sure, yeah. And it was like, why? What is this guy? What are you doing? You're a public figure, and you're coming out and be like, Catholicism is great. Be a man, and then you're like, okay, but also, here is an animated teddy bear taking cocaine. What's going on? But he puts out the schedule, and then James Corbin, who is like,
I remember that episode, that thing with James Corbin.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
And then James Corbin's like, he's already up, he's already praying right now. He gets there, and Marky Mark rolls out of bed, and he's all just like, ugh. It's like, yeah, that's right. You weren't up at 2:00 in the morning meditating. Stop acting like you can do this all the time.
But The Rock gets up at 3 every day, James. So getting up at 2 wouldn't be that much harder.
Okay, I don't care. If I could get up at 10 a.m., I would.
He does his cardio before he does his real workout. So he has.
That's such a waste of existence. I don't. Why would you do that?
Well, because then once you get you cardio and then your actual workout, then you can start your real day.
Then you can look like an egg with a 6-pack painted on it.
Yeah.
Like, cool.
Isn't it all you've ever wanted?
All I've ever wanted
is it comes in a rocket can.
Rocket can. We're going to lose the kids.
Going to lose the kids.
Yeah, we might as well start talking about, Benny Goodman or something.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's like really our
imagine the internet before YouTube.
Yeah. Whoa. Oh, man.
Yeah, but there is this culture of flexing, and we do fall into it, and it's really gross.
But I mean, I guess, like, is there any sort of appropriate way of like having serious discussions about virtue online then?
Philosophical
Yeah, I guess so. Well, that's the kind of like yeah.
You could just say, like, St. Thomas has this to say. Aristotle has this to say. St. Augustine has this to say. Isn't this interesting? Well, we could apply this in the following ways. But the presentation is always, you need to do X, Y, and Z, or you're not a man. And here's my man schedule. And I get up and I strangle snakes at 4 a.m.
Is that a reference to the guy who strangled the snakes at YC that you when you were
no, that actually wasn't. I was thinking of like Hercules strangling a snake in his crib. And
okay.
Yeah.
I always love that story with like the montage of like stuff from like the Spawn movie in the background.
Rebuke the serpent. This is why preaching should never be the emphasis. Sacraments.
Yeah. The
because it turns into a stage show.
Well, yeah, I mean, I never I was always on kind of like the more Catholic side of Protestantism, so I never really experienced that sort of thing. But we did have like long homilies, like they're long. And there's also the kind of the talent show sort of thing in the congregation. It was like, and now it's time for our senior choir to come up and sing "How Great Thou Art." It's just like, oh, great! This is not thou art not.
How great we are!
Yeah, how great we are! This is my song. Oh man. But I think part of it too is I don't know, like is that there is kind of like there is so much focus on natural virtue that we do sort of kind of have a Pelagian tendency to like sort of not admit that like the work of our soul is ultimately God's work, and that it is a very personal thing as well. I mean, like that God's like just look at how different like the paths of the lives of the saints were to the path of holiness. I mean, it is kind of a perverse thing to try and like sell that as sort of like a package that like or a one fits all sort of thing, you know. And well, you do have to, yeah.
A lot of it's not in bad faith. That's the thing. It's sort of like, hey, I just figured out this thing. You should do it exactly the way I did it, kind of, and which is a basic. There's a basic human instinct to that.
Sure.
To want people to figure it out the exactly same way that you figured it out, and by you just pointing and telling them to do it that exact same way.
I know, but like, I guess I just like. People just kind of need to kind of like realize that you're more likely to put people off than you are to sort of, you know, than you or at least just as likely. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you're like really in the pulse or something. But I mean, most people are just going to get kind of grossed out by that, especially if you sort of trying to brand the the gospel and sort of in your own sort of personal way. That's what's so
it's
nice.
The 21st century, John. We brand everything.
I know, but like that's what's so nice about going to Latin Mass. It is that it is so like kind of unpersonalized.
No, and it's not trying to. If it's being done properly, it's really not trying to sell itself to you. It's like
yeah. Well, we talked about that last time.
Hey.
Well, and
like, what are you into, kids?
Well, I mean, and unfortunately, I mean, like I think that like like obviously it's true that there is a universal destination to holiness, but I mean, in trying to pursue that in the post-conciliar church, so many people fall into these traps of like, trying to sell the gospel again. And I mean, it runs around with the exact same problem. And so, I mean, yeah, I mean, I mean, it's always going to just appeal to one sort of person when you try and market your, like, that's even that's the thing with marketing is, if you want to have effective marketing, you don't like you don't want to have the big green pill bottle that says this is like a cure all, like this will cover your, like, like this is a great medicine for both like halitosis and genital warts and for and for diarrhea. It's all this in one bottle. Like, no one wants that bottle. You want something very specific to your condition. That's how you market things.
Yeah, 100%. If I saw that in a store, I'd be like, I don't want what's in there. That's not good.
No,
that's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Those things should be different things.
Yeah. So no one wants the big green medicine bottle that fixes everything. They want, like, something that's very specific to their needs. But that's the great thing about Latin Mass, is that it is just so universal that people, like, actually can come into it at whatever stage they're at. Like, I mean, even like babies, like Josephine is kind of participating at her level when it's and children of all kinds are participating in their own level, like the families are just like, they're swinging around plastic rosary beads, and they're it just is like it just is a very and then you have, like, people who have been, like, living their lives, like their whole Catholic lives, and they're like very sort of like honed in into their one way of worshiping, and or and you can have, like, educated people, really following, like, the text. And I don't know, it just, like, it's just not like that at all, which is great.
Yeah, it's this is a thing. It's a thing that does one thing.
Yeah.
It's oriented. It does one thing. You are welcome to be involved in the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember one of my friends in college, like, he wasn't a very spiritual person. He had, like, a Catholic background, and he just came to a low mass, and it was just low mass. I mean, like, what is there else to say to it? Like, it's like there's no homily. The liturgy is just said. The reading is read. Like, most of the time you can't even hear it, and he's just like, oh, I love that. It was great. And just like, and it's like he's I don't think now he's really into his faith. I think he's like at working as some working on at Bay Street in Toronto in the financial department and stuff. But I mean, it's but yeah, I mean, if it came back, I'm sure he would, be able to have, like, a similar experience, but yeah, it really is sort of the Mass of Saint Sinners, Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I mean, I want to. We're on the same page of this, but I really want to, like, sort of bring on someone who is, really sort of, gung ho, Novus Ordo, to sort of, like, defend that position, because I think that would be. I might get my friend Brett to do that. Actually, I think he'd be a good guest to come on, because he's like a theologian who kind of, like, writes for Communio, and I think that'll be I think that would actually
it wasn't a doctorate from Helsinki, was it?
No, it's
because they have a great theology faculty there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they've got, plenty of activists and whoever you want to go around. Yeah. But I mean, there is sort of like a there is sort of a priest who I've been following a lot, and I actually do have a lot of respect for one of the things that he said. But he had this like really sort of like cringe sort of take on sort of defending Pope Francis in the Pachamama, and I think maybe that would be sort of like a good thing for us to sort of like to sort of go into next, because I think I think you'd have some interested things to say about it. So let me go there right now.
Back to something. Oh yes, the Pachamama. Some people take exception to Pope Francis' decision to take the Pachamama, pagan goddess of fertility, and bring it into the church. Excuse me. I take no exception to this. You know why? I'll give you an example. This has been done since the time of Christ, what Pope Francis did. Let's go back to St. John the Evangelist, the longest surviving apostle who died at Patmos. He was well into his 90s. His body was never found, by the way. I went to visit his tomb, but it's empty. I never found his body, like that of Moses. And St. John is the first writer in the history of Christianity to refer to Jesus as the Logos, the Word of God. In fact, after every Latin Mass, the priest walks to the left side of the altar and he reads the Sequentia Secundum, like the gospel reading from John, Secundum Ioannis, Secundum Ioannis. And then he says, In principiat erat verbum. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Where did this concept of word come from that John refers to Christ? You know where it began? In Greek pagan mythology. That's right. St. John the Evangelist took a pagan Greek word and applied it to Christ. At the time of John the Evangelist, the word logos, you know what it meant? It was like what you refer today in New Age spirituality as energy.
No.
An impersonal.
No, it was not. Good grief. Read a history book.
I mean, wasn't it just a very just
Still
like the term? Yeah, I mean, because there were so many different like interpretations of the word.
Allow me to bring up
Yeah.
what logos means. Oh my goodness. Brief history. Logos comes into the philosophical parlance in the pre-Socratic period with thinkers like Heraclitus, who referred to the logos,
Sure.
which is the Heraclitus thinks of the logos, as far as we can tell. He was called enigmatic.
Sure.
He, as far as we can tell by logos, what he means is the reason behind all things, sort of what Plato later meant by the form. When he was looking for the form of the good, the order behind all things, the nous, what they were calling nous, and they're referring to mind. Something related to that, not equivalent to that, obviously, but the term is taken up by thinkers like Aristotle, Plato, and Aristotle. It means the ratio, what we translate as ratio. When Erasmus did his translation from the Greek Gospels into Latin, a good Latinist and a good Greek scholar as well, he translated, he produced a New Testament called Novum Instrumentum. And it was one of the first printings in the West of the Greek New Testament because of the difficulty of collating manuscripts that had been received or treasured in the West, and then getting them out to print, basically. And also finding someone who had a Greek typeset at their printing press. And so Erasmus puts it this, and it's parallel columns in the Novum Instrumentum. The beginning of John's Gospel is in principio erat ratio.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what most of these philosophical thinkers meant. It's certainly what Philo the Jew meant when he was talking of Philo of Alexandria, when he was talking about logos in the context of Judaism, and there are people out there who have accused Philo of Alexandria of being Gnostic or New Age, and they've never read him, obviously, because he is not that.
No, I mean, like, there was Gnostic readings of the first chapter of St. John, of course. Like, Valentinian had his, like, he thought in the Prologium that there was, like, you could find the 30 ions or whatever.
You can have a New Age reading of my parking receipts if you want. Like, there's no limit to what the madness of a single person can extrapolate.
But
that's not what logos meant at the time at all.
I know, but to put, like, sort of one sort of definition of logos too is sort of facetious as well, because I mean, there's the Stoic understanding of logos that was kind of floating around in the Hellenic word at the time, and it was sort of it was a very sort of but the term definitely just like the term, like the use of the word like variable, like word, does sort of encapsulate well, I mean, not perfectly the understanding, but like the understanding of sort of idea and word is sort of as something of a product of a person's mind is, would have kind of been closer to the general understanding. I mean, Augustine sort of develops that in De Trinitate as well, sort of the relationship between the mind of the Father and and the word of his Son. It's just that's. I mean, it seems clear that that's what. But I mean, I guess like what to sort of like defend Father's point, I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to establish that there's a tradition of sort of co-opting or Christianizing things in the pagan tradition. That's kind of what the point that he's trying to make, whether he's doing that well or not in this cases. But I mean, it just seems like to really be a comparison between apples and oranges, to sort of like even if you grant his point that that he was using like sort of like a pagan term, whether it was like New Age or philosophical.
It was
sort of like,
it wasn't a pagan term by that point. It was a universal term. And the other thing that he's missing in this is that by that point in history, old school paganism, like let's go sacrifice 16 geese to Jupiter today. It was still around, but there was this strain of philosophical monotheism coming out of the Athenian schools. You could hardly call it paganism.
Well, I mean,
and that's where the logos language is coming from, because John's not the first one John is the first one to use it in Holy Writ in the way in which he does, but he's not the first person in history of Jewish origins to use the word. Philo of Alexandria uses it first.
Mm-hmm.
And if Philo of Alexandria is using this term, it's not just relegated to him. There's a whole school of people who think about it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you see something in a text, there's almost always more than one person talking about it at the time.
Mm.
And the Apostle John his father was a priest. He was highly educated, and it comes out very obviously in the texts which he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's not making it up out of whole cloth. It's coming out of a tradition, so that when his contemporaries read an arche and ologos, they weren't like, what does that mean? They knew what it meant. And it did not mean let's hang the crystals off the ceiling and smoke incense. That's not what it meant at all.
No, but I mean, if we keep listening to let's but I'm not let's keep listening. I think that'll be worth our while here to contribute to this discussion.
Didn't have any distinct characteristics. Like Star Wars, let the Force be with you. That was the Logos. So what did John do? He took a pagan term and he applied it to Christ. He said, he is the Logos. The same thing Paul did when he went to the Areopagus in Athens and preached to the philosophers and sophists. He said, I see you have all these shrines devoted to many gods, but I saw one that said the unknown God. And you know what Paul did? He said, this is Jesus Christ. He's the unknown God you've been looking for. That's exactly what Pope Francis did. He bent down to this Aborigine culture in the Amazon that don't know Christ, whose members don't know Christ, and he took what they considered the goddess, which we call the Virgin Mary.
So, for instance, like the Huron Carol that St. John Brebeuf wrote. You know, he says like the first line of it, instead of using the term God the Father, they use the name of their God, which is kind of like their equivalent of the God of all, like mighty Guadalupe men or something. Send choirs of angels instead. But I mean, I don't think that
it's an equivalent term though. So Deus, of course, is related to Zeus. Dios in the Greek is another word for Zeus. So when in Latin uses the term Deus, by the time it's come into use at the time the Roman Empire.
Taxi.
At the time of the Roman Empire, it's already lost its kind of. That kind of connotation. It comes to mean general. Deus and Dea, Dei. It just means gods.
Sure.
The term sufficiently. The term is sufficiently vague, although there were always questions amongst theologians to the degree to which this is being incorporated. That they did not do this in Europe.
Oh,
like we like in Germany, you don't offer the sacrifice to Odin.
Well, I heard like the Christmas tree though. That's like was it German pagan custom originally?
Yes, was it?
I think so. Yeah.
I had always heard that it was kind of commemorating Boniface cutting down the tree because you're chopping down a tree. Usually you don't chop down sacred trees.
Right.
You usually leave the sacred trees in the sacred grove.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So is that true, or is that a piece of Protestant propaganda? Because it tends to get turned out as a piece of sort of like Southern Baptist, the Catholics worship the devil sort of thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the Christmas trees comes from the Germans, and they worshipped Odin, and that's why they stuck trees in their houses. Well, why? Why would you cut down the sacred tree? Who else cut down a sacred tree? Well, St. Boniface cut down a sacred tree.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
But that's like a folk practice.
Yeah.
Not an actual idol. Not an actual idol.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's why that was the point where I was saying it's like apples and oranges. Yeah, it's like, I mean, just because like, you know, even if like we granted Father's point about using like a term or St. Paul, you know, appealing at the Areopagus to the altar of the unknown gods, it's not like he would actually like take that altar and then like enshrine it in their local church and say it's just like, you know, they say that
it was to the unknown God and very specific. There's a very specific.
Oh, I guess they did do that with the Pantheon, though.
Again,
but it was
after they smashed all the idols.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah.
They did it with the Parthenon too. After they smashed all the idols.
Yeah.
They weren't like, well, we'll just throw a different coat of paint on Athena and we're good. We got ourselves a Virgin Mary statue now. Absolutely not. That's not what they did at all.
Yeah.
No, completely out to lunch.
Yeah.
He's completely offside here. This is sort of.
Well, I mean, that is like the mainstream argument for people who try and sort of play apologists to Pope Francis's decision with to.
Yeah, but you can make an argument from anything for motivated reasoning.
Like
the point is that it was deeply and obviously inappropriate and unapostolic. Like, they don't know who the Virgin Mary is. Have you tried telling them? Because you don't have any converts.
No.
You know, like if you read a book about being a Jesuit, you might figure out that what you're supposed to do and what you're doing now are two completely different friggin' things.
Yeah. I mean,
like the bishop from that region is like, I've never baptized someone in my life. Ha 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 ha. And I've been a bishop for how many years? But I still get the microwave popcorn and watch the game. Like, well, you sure as shit don't do your job.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, obviously they're not. It's like, well, this is what they think the Virgin Mary's. Have you tried telling them? Have you? Because, you know, they probably think that the earth is flat, but if we explain to them that it's round, they might cotton on to the idea. Like, it's not that hard of a concept.
No. Well, I mean...
Well, they think the moon is made of cheese, so what can we do about it?
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's also, like, offensive to sort of, like, equivocate, you know, the mother of our Lord to sort of, like, this... I mean, obviously it's offensive, like this understatement of the century. I mean, to like the goddess of the world, because our mother is like not of this. Our heavenly mother is not of this world. Like, it's the whole point. So it's like it's so antithetical as well.
Yeah, but the point, of course, is not that the excuse and what was actually going on are obviously two very different things. So
yeah.
But yeah, the hackneyed attempts at pseudo-historical apologetics just drive me up the wall, as you may have noticed.
Yeah, that's what the reaction I was hoping for.
It's pretty, it's just... just
It's deeply
disturbing. Just read a book.
Brush your teeth. Brush your teeth.
Just... It's not what the term was at all. My goodness. Just the badness of... It's really frustrating.
Well, I know. I mean, it's kind of the product of you know, the seminary sort of programming. Like, and I mean, you just kind of do get sort of like there has been a successful, you know, moderately successful sort of way of sort of culture war of sort of enshrining sort of the project of the post-conciliar movement on both kind of conservative and liberal ends as sort of this as sort of being this you know, as being like being justified. And so like that's why like both kind of conservative and liberal Catholics, you know, think traditionalists are just so out to lunch, because there has been sort of like quite an effective dissemination of these you know, these ideas about how like the you know, that what is actually happening is faithful to, you know, the tradition of the church.
I need one. Yeah. This is why he went, but you'll notice what he went for.
Yeah.
Here, he didn't even go for the Christmas tree thing, because that one's fairly easy to diffuse.
Yeah.
Like, if everyone wears party hats on a day, like, you're not gonna really take exception with that.
Yeah.
Party hats are fun. There's nothing inherently pagan about party hats.
Yeah.
But he went with something sufficiently vague.
Yeah.
That he could kind of do a little bit of an acrobat trick with. Sure. And if someone in the audience didn't know the history of the term logos,
yeah,
they'd be like, "Oh yeah, Because there's no single example of an idol of a specific deity being incorporated into Catholicism.
No.
Not one.
No.
The idols were all destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. It's frustrating.
They were the idols were all destroyed to the point where 1,000 years later, people could paint paintings of Apollo in a chariot and tell the stories of the sons of Jupiter, and except for a few people who got really, really upset about this, most people were like, "This is fine." Even very pious people were like, "Well, it's fake. It's fake stories, and they're kind of fun." They illustrate a point, and they make nice paintings, and they're very like it had been. Not only had paganism not been incorporated, it had been stripped out of the consciousness of Europe so dramatically.
Yeah.
That when it was reintroduced in the period that we usually refer to as the Renaissance, it was just like, it's not real. We're not going to start except for like 2 guys who were really into it. Everyone was like, we're not going to worship Zeus. That would be stupid. Because he's obviously not real. This is dumb.
Yeah.
So it can be done. Like, these people who live in the huts, are they like idiots? Are they somehow subhuman? Are we saying that they're too stupid to understand that there are other things besides their little wooden idols that they worship? I don't. It's deeply insulting.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the more charitable interpretation. The interpretation of, like, that the which I think sadly is the case of many of these prelates, is that they just don't necessarily believe in the veracity of their own faith.
Well, I mean, they're usually the ones who are the dumb ones. Like, they should switch with the people in the huts, because the people in the huts could probably do a better job at being bishops at this point. He's illiterate. He doesn't know what bronze is, but he's probably better to run the diocese. Well, we'll give him an English phrase book and hope for the best.
Nomenclature on the record saying that hut-dwelling Mayan will be a better bishop.
Some of them, like, my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's an interesting time, can we say.
All of Christendom was in moral outrage.
And it's true. I think, especially in this case, I mean, I think that the reaction to this was genuine. A lot of people think that, like, I mean, this is obviously, a correlation or everything, and this sort of a very sort of borderline superstitious thing, but noted that that happened, like, right on the kind of like the advent of the pandemic, which is interesting. I mean, I guess, like, it's not unprecedented for God to sort of, like, bring in a plague when there is a severe bout of idolatry or mispractice or yeah.
The guy in charge doesn't keep me updated on what's going on, so I don't know what the timetable looks like. But I mean, the charitable interpretation, which is, we're all about charity here. I don't know if you've noticed, but the charitable interpretation is I think, sufficient to argue that they're just too stupid to know what they're doing in most cases. Like, I'm not.
It's really hard to sort of maintain that sort of like with any sort of level of sincerity, like when you have like Jeffrey Sachs, coming to the synod and stuff like that.
I think it is, though, if you a sufficient amount of reading in history will convince you that anyone is capable of that many people are capable of an almost unbelievable stupidity. Like that time Henry VIII used Parliament to make himself more powerful, but it just made his heirs less powerful. And then the thing that he didn't want to happen, which was a civil war, happened anyway. Ta-da!
Right.
And now the British monarchs are basically just the prisoners of Parliament. They can't do anything. And it's been that way for centuries. It's been that way for centuries, and it's absolutely 100% his fault. And he thought he had a great idea, and it turned out to be the dumbest idea that he had in his entire life.
The dumbest. I mean, like
to destroy the Catholic Church in England. Yeah, that was the dumbest idea. Yeah. That was the dumbest idea that Henry VIII had in his entire life. The part where he got syphilis. The part where he got syphilis, that was not a great move either. But it's all related,
right?
But yeah, you would think he had a great education. He didn't seem to be that dim. He was almost the Holy Roman Emperor, and yet somehow he managed to just do stupid things that had unintended consequences that he thought were a great idea at the time. So it's not without precedent that people can just be really dumb. Really dumb.
Can you really can you really sort of maintain? I mean, obviously you can at least, in a charitable interpretation, say that he was motivated by self-interest. I mean, obviously. I mean,
but then what he did was eliminate. There were different factions in the country, and he completely eliminated one of the factions that would fight against the other factions. And then he gave a whole pile of money and land and power to this rising middle class.
Right.
And completely eliminated the church.
Right.
The church, which guaranteed the authority of his rule. He just got rid of it. And then replaced it with a bunch of these people from the middle class in positions in the new church that he made, and gave them massive amounts of property. And all the families that made out like bandits in the Reformation in England were the families that fought against the crown in the Civil War.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's interesting because the areas that fought for Charles I during the English Civil War were the areas that most vehemently resisted Henry VIII's Reformation. Yes, indeed. So he literally was like, those people, the ones who secure my authority, out with them. You sketchy-looking individual. Here is the keys to my house. I'm going to sleep now.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a way,
a really short-sighted version of self-motivation, which is, I mean, I'm sure that's what most of these these shall remain unnamed prelates are really like they are kind of self-motivated, but they're not like really that smart.
Well, it's kind of how you're like talking about how you're talking about like the sort of the Wile E. Coyote super genius sort of thing is with this like new
Wile E. Coyote super genius.
I should have queued up one of those clips, but I like the sound of that. Yeah, but just
Wile E. Coyote.
but yeah, but like with like the new sort of regulations, I mean, or the new enforcement of what do you call traditionis custodes again? Like the
custodians of the trash can? Is it?
No, your Latin translation. The of you don't like I call it tradition and custody, but it's you had a more vulgar sort of.
Oh no,
Yeah.
that was credit where credit's due. That's from Father Zed, Tarina Kakata.
Tarina Kakata, yeah. It doesn't really sound like traditionis custodes, but
yes,
yeah.
but it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, that it's probably just like increased attendance to Latin Mass even more.
I've got you now.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't understand what the end game is. So I mean, because I mean, it would be a moral dilemma for people who want to be in a good state of union with with their prelate and stuff, but it's but for people in the society, I mean, it's not gonna change like one iota of like what they do. I mean, why would it? So if anything, they're just going to be driving more and more people into the society.
Well, and it's some people have suggested that it's a kind of a corralling technique.
Oh,
We'll get them all in one spot, and then
excommunicate them.
And then what?
Yeah.
Then
well, that's why. Oh, yeah. Taylor Marshall
like,
talked about that. Yeah.
No, but like what? I really want to know what you're gonna do. Like what we'll get them all in one spot, and then when a whole large group of people is backed into a corner and they're angry, then we got them right where we want them, which is they're gonna fight you to the death. Is that what you want? I don't understand what the possible plan is here.
But I don't understand how you're planning on like corralling like the Sedevacantists and stuff as well. Until
we got him. We got him.
Doesn't make any sense.
Well, especially now, it's so funny. It's like, but now that you've advocated for a hippy dippy free society where all religions have equal weight, that means that the state isn't going to uphold your authority and claims to property. They just be like, well, it just belongs to them because they're like there's not going to be any heretic marshmallow roasts going on.
No.
It's going to be like, hey, they can't do that. And the state will be like, well, they can do whatever they want. Man, you don't own like the road.
No. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there isn't. Yeah, the more you think about it, like, I mean, what are they really going to do? I mean, are they going to go tell like the people who, like the Pope Michael guys, like, you are in schism, like, just... yeah. Oh no.
Well, it'll end up bothering a lot of people's consciences, but but the problem, of course, is that it just lends credence to the old society argument that they're like, oh, well, there's a state of emergency, so we can do whatever we want.
Jurisdiction,
and make what you will of the argument. Every time you do something stupid, it makes the argument more
tenable,
more compelling.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a big mess. So, but make sure that you like and subscribe and join us next time on the Catholic Scallywag, the same bad time, same bad show.
And always remember, you will receive your reward in purgatory.
Good night.